intellectual property rights don't actually protect ideas and concepts as such. Intellectual property rights systems are fairly arbitrary legal protection systems, and you either can come within them or you don't. It's unrelated to morality and ethics. Sometimes people have quite a strong sense of what they believe their IP is, or their IP intellectual property is, and that may be true in a general sense, but in terms of mapping that to actual legal rights that means something in a concrete way, we need to look at actually how you fall within the various protection systems. Another starting point is that intellectual property rights are just like any other property rights. If you own a plot of land or a field in Tipperary, there's things the things that make it property. And there's two reasons it's property. One is you own it, and secondly is that you have the legal right to exclude others. And that's essentially what property is. And intellectual property is exactly like any other property. So you can own it, and you can control it, you can exclude others from it, you can enforce it, you can deal in it, you can transact it, you can transfer it, you can license it, you can mortgage it, and it can have a value which can increase or decrease depending on how you manage it. So there are quite a number of intellectual property rights, but the four main ones that any business needs to know about are set out on this screen, and they're quite different to each other. Patents or patents protect new technical inventions, and the reason for patent protection is that it's in return for disclosing something in public. So your invention needs to be technical, it needs to be new, and it needs to be not obvious. And in the context of food, obviously this include apparatus and manufacturing devices, but also processes and additives, ingredients, nutraceuticals, probiotics, all kinds of food science things can fall within patents. The key point about patents, if you feel you're in the area of patent law, patent protection, is that any non-confidential disclosure of the inventor's subject matter will probably destroy your rights in the patent. You need to keep things secret, and you need to manage your secrets in a particular way. The second type of intellectual property right, which is completely different. It's as different as you can get. There's nothing intellectual about trademarks. We're all consumers. I can think of a brand right now and make one up. I can file it as a trademark today. I get 10 years protection, no intellect involved in that at all, and I can go around stopping everybody else using it. So trademarks really function in terms of commercial rights, and it's questionable whether they're even intellectual property anyway. But we're all consumers, and most of us will know instinctively what a trademark is. And then finally, the first three are usually registration systems, except for unregistered design right. And copyright is not a registration system; it exists automatically. You might actually own the content and the product and not even own the copyright yourself, and not even know it. So someone else might actually own the copyright. And so so the key point about copyright is it's unregistered. There's no registration system for copyright. It's an automatic legal right that comes into force on creation. Obviously, that's a hugely complex area in 5 minutes. So a sort of simpler way of saying it is, if you have these questions, this is the area you're in. And I think it helps to move from a colloquial sense of IP and our intellectual property, and that's important in your business discourse, but also to look towards when these other words apply and why they might be relevant to your business and when. So I won't read all those out. And also to bear in mind that there can be overlap between intellectual property rights and multiple options. So if you imagine you've never heard of Actimel, and I'm only using this as an example, and it's not by reference to Danone. So imagine this is new, so imagine this: an Irish SME and a $1 billion multinational corporation. And this is what you have. So what's available in terms of IP? What do you need to know about it? Well, obviously, in food science terms, there's any number of patent things to think about with the additives or ingredients or probiotic cultures. In terms of trademark, it's all about brand and name and logo. Design rights, the shape of the packaging, the shape of the product. Even some of the logos can be design rights. And then the copyright is kind of automatic right that just exists no matter what, on creation of content, artwork, drawings, even the jingle for the logo for the ad. So both the Irish SME and the billion-dollar multinational corporation have the same opportunities. Of course, the challenge for each is understanding the systems and knowing what works best for their business and what to get the best impact out of the spend in terms of all these completely separate, complex legal rights that are available, and not to just rush in. And also to understand in terms of assets for the company, to understand the difference between these different intellectual property rights and why they're different to each other and why each of them matter. Something that's not an intellectual property right at all, but it's very important for SMEs in particular, is our trade secrets. And there's no formal legal protection for trade secrets. The way you protect trade secrets is by keeping them secret and by managing that secrecy in terms of non-disclosure agreements. There is a draft legislation coming to harmonise trade secrets in Europe, which in practice actually won't make a huge amount of difference to how trade secrets are treated in Ireland. But just understand that you don't have to be filing intellectual property rights. There are ways of keeping things secret. The saxophone, for example, was the first instrument that was started to be patented, I think, at the end of the 19th century, Adolphus Sax. And there's where the invention is disclosed to the public by way of patents. If you think back to Stradivarius and the technology in violins and Cremona, albeit this is a strained example, but just to give you an idea, that this is passed by secret from family to family, and it wasn't. The strategy there wasn't to file patents and tell everybody about it. The strategy there was to use secrecy and to manage it. So there are all kinds of ways of managing your intangible assets, and the key is getting the right advice up front at the right time and mapping that to what your business actually needs, and not simply see these as filing options and as costs. Just kind of a sort of macro look at why IP rights are important for innovation. And bear in mind, IP rights, we're talking about patents, copyrights, trademarks, and design rights. Okay? And I think an important one is competitiveness, that SMEs are just as able to use the intellectual property systems as big companies. Most of the rights are first to file. If you get there first, you own it. And they can be very potent rights. Similarly, if someone else has got there before you, they can be potent against you. And also the fact that most of the rights are exclusive means that you can use the rights to engage with the markets and sell or license or monetize some of the rights with the market. And particularly in terms of patents, the function of patent law really is to get new technology and innovation out into the open and encourage that it should be disclosed to the public in return for that 20-year monopoly right. Nearly finished. And in particular, from the point of view of your business, why are all these intellectual property rights important for your business? Well, of course, it depends. They're all very different, the intellectual property rights, and your business needs are very different. But the key points would be that they're property, they're legal properties, in the way that we talked about the plot of the field, the plot of land, that you can use them to obtain market exclusivity and competitive advantage. Several of the rights are first-to-file systems, small can defeat large. You can, once you have registrations and these properties, legal properties, you can license to third parties or monetize them and control and I think by using intellectual property rights carefully and strategically, you can seek to protect and get a return on your investment across the development of the business and your innovation. And over time, although it is, I would say exclusivity really is the main reason myself, and that contributing to business value really will depend on how strategic you've managed to be and what quality of intellectual property rights you've managed to obtain. But in a general sense, intellectual property rights will underpin the value of your company. So just one final slide, because I know it's not much time. And apologies, because this is an absolutely huge, complex subject, and I'm just galloping through it. And if you have any questions, obviously you can ask me afterwards. just some kind of tips from sort of practitioner over the years of working with particularly Irish companies, and what I think would be helpful for business people to know is that conducting a sort of an audit on your own business and looking at everything that could potentially be capable of protection as legal intellectual property rights, and looking at who might own those. I mean, depending on employee-employer situations, or third parties or consultants, there may be issues around ownership, and also third parties may have rights against you. And I think filing should never be file and forget. It needs to be strategic. You need to think ahead, and otherwise you're just wasting your money, in my view. And the strategy needs to be adapted to the business outcomes that you want. Once you get some IP rights in place, you have a portfolio that you're not finished yet, you need to manage it correctly and look after it. And the whole point is exclusivity, and that's about monitoring third parties. And assert IP rights where necessary, and I'm not saying sue anybody. Assertion is about positioning your IP rights, how you refer to them, how you identify them, how you use them to act as a deterrent. Litigation would be your final thing you would consider. So it's about assertion of your IP rights, and of course, when you need to, you have to make it legal. And I think the final point is that intellectual property rights strategy should be seen as an executive or a business concern. It's not something that marketing down the way or accounting the way has on their desk exclusively. It's not simply a cost that you have to incur or bear, and that the way to get value out of the intellectual property rights systems is to integrate it within an overall business plan and marketing strategy that fits with your own business. So that's my very rapid run through intellectual property and innovation. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Roger Duggan. Recipes. Have you come up with a recipe?
Well, like make our gin, for example.
So if there's you can keep a secret, and you can manage that secret using confidentiality. There's no you can't protect ideas or concepts. I think the way they protect it is by keeping it secret. So there's no protection for. So the intellectual is probably a part of IP that probably doesn't help the overall understanding. They used to be called industrial property rights back in the old days. When they go back to the 1800s, copyright goes back to 1600s or further. So it's about industry. With the knowledge economy, we've become fixated on intellectual and IP and ideas. But I think sometimes just backtracking a little and just seeing in a kind of almost boring way that these main intellectual property rights have certain definitions. So a recipe, there's no protection for a recipe as such. It can be copyrighted as an idea. If you print it out on a piece of paper, there's copyright protection for what's printed out on the piece of paper. You can stop somebody copying it. But if I go and bake the cake or make the gin, you can't. That's not an infringement. You could obviously brand your process and give it a trademark, whatever. So you're at the outer reaches of where intellectual property can be of any practical help, I'm afraid. Great question.